This episode is sponsored by EasyDNS. EasyDNS is a domain name, registrar, and host that has a 30-year track record in the domain and web hosting industry. Whether it be cancel culture, platforming attacks, or nefarious actors online, move your domain and web hosting over to EasyDNS, one of the most secure web hosting services, and help support Not on Record in the process. All you have to do is go to easydns.com/notonrecord, or when you sign up at EasyDNS, use the promo code Not on Record at checkout. Thank you, EasyDNS, for your support for Not on Record. Now back to our podcast.
You know, we often have clients that say, "Why am I being charged?" And one of the things that we want to talk about today is the obligation or lack of obligation from the police to investigate before they lay charges. And
well, I guess the one way to frame that is, what is a police investigation?
Right. Yeah.
What is it?
Well, you know, we've had clients before who said, "I want to talk to you and I want to give you information. I have witnesses." And the police said to them, "No, you shouldn't talk to me." And
we're not going to interview anybody if you give us their names and numbers.
They didn't spelled out their names for the police and everything, gave the contact information, never contacted. So one of the questions from our clients is why? Why do they not investigate?
So let's define this for a second. So we know clearly that an investigation can be completed solely by the police taking a statement from a complainant. So again, we're talking in this case about our typical type of work, which is a sexual assault allegation. So the police will take a statement from the complainant. They may get a few messages from them, which the complainant will determine what messages they want to provide, and then we'll either give a screenshot of it or upload it to the link that the police have, and that's the investigation. And that is 90% of the cases that we get. So the clients come to us and go, "Well, there was no investigation. Why am I charged?" And that's where you're starting off, right?
Right. And so, you know, the reality is that if a complainant makes a statement, and presuming what they're saying is true, because they take an oath to tell the truth most of the time, if what they're saying is assumed to be true, if what they say amounts to a sexual assault, then there is evidence to lay a charge.
Right. So the police just need reasonable grounds, if we still call it that, to lay a charge. And frankly, they take the position that a complainant is telling the truth. I mean, in some of the statements, the police do a better job than others. They'll either swear an oath, they'll explain to them, you know, they have a preset method that they go through. We want to know the truth. It's a crime to tell us something that isn't true. They sort of explain what an obstruct is or a public mischief. And then, do you promise to tell us the truth? Or they'll have a commissioner of oath come in and then swear an oath to tell the truth. So, you know, in defense of the police, they do go through this preamble where it does impart to a witness or a complainant that it's important for them to give all information that's truthful and to be as fulsome in their recount of the information as possible. But the police do operate, as we've said, over 5 years, I guess, of this podcast. It's 5 years, right, Max? 5 years, that they operate from the position that a complainant is telling the truth. And that forms the basis for the police to lay the charge. That gives them reasonable grounds to lay the charge.
Right. So, but there are some things that may come up, like in a case that we're going to talk about with a client that we had, which thankfully the Crown withdrew the charges.
Which is rare, but they did, yeah.
Yeah.
And we had an excellent Crown attorney who I've known for over 30 years, who was a defense lawyer for a little while. Outstanding Crown attorney, very reasonable, very professional, very open-minded. So he's an absolute delight to deal with. We were very fortunate to be working with him.
Yeah, and so this is a case where there was some communications provided by the complainant or accessed via information from the complainant, in which our client had placed an advertisement for a companion. And it was very clear in that advertisement that it was for companionship, not purchasing sexual services or anything like that. And there were also things contained within the statement from the complainant which mentioned that she was under unbeknownst to our client, she was under psychiatric care. And from the first time she met our client, then went back into psychiatric care, spoke to a doctor about her decision to go on a trip with this person, and then checked herself out of care.
Against the doctor's advice.
Against the doctor's advice.
This is all contained within the complainant's statement, by the way.
Yeah. And so one of the things that stands out for me was the complainant's claim that she was taken out of the city that she was located in on a trip with our client, and that she had no idea, according to her, that she was leaving the city.
That was her statement. That was
In her
one of the
statement.
aspects. She said
Right.
very clearly early on, I thought we were just staying within the town where I live. We're not naming the town. I had no idea that I was going to be taken out of the town and be traveling with him.
And yet,
That's an important point.
yeah, and yet she told the police also that she had filled prescription medications to take with her and had a suitcase that she needed to obtain from the hotel where she called the police from once they got to this final location that they went to, before she called the police. Anyway, you would think that the police would ask, why does this person have a suitcase? And why did this person plan to take medication with them if they didn't believe they were actually going to be leaving the town?
And there's some information from the complainant about our client taking her shopping for clothing.
Correct.
And some indication that, if I remember correctly, about some discussions about where they would go. But it wasn't in detail.
Right. So,
The police really, what you're saying is the police really didn't follow up on these things. So
these
thing you
are
could imagine-
these are obvious things that should click for somebody taking a statement saying, why did you have a suitcase?
right. So one
If
would
you didn't
imagine
know.
a police officer would say, okay, thank you for sharing that, if you want to be gentle about it. But can you tell me why you had a suitcase with you at this location? How did you come to have a suitcase, and what did you think was going to happen? Nothing.
No.
And again, police somewhat are trained to not challenge a complainant because, again, there's a lot of this,
Victim rights.
about,
Bill.
the dehumanizing aspect and the re-traumatizing of interviews and everything else. But again, an investigation is supposed to be an objective and undertaking to uncover, important truths. Okay, a lot of the time, avenues in which police can further ask questions are not taken up during an interview. That's one example.
So, we've covered a little bit in this case. There's a lot involved in this case, but
Can I just say one other
I think
thing?
it's very important to ask this question: is why can the police not pursue these avenues of questions? Why do they not do it?
It's an important point. Let's just add a couple more things to the factual matrix here. So the complainant left one town and then ultimately passed a note to an employee at a hotel asking for help.
It was very dramatic.
Yeah, in another city. Okay, so it was dramatic. Our client was arrested there. Police in this other city arrived. Now, there is CCTV surveillance cameras all over the hotel, all over a restaurant, all over various places where they went, some of which is mentioned by the complainant. When you talk about an investigation, just following up on questions, one of the most common pieces of evidence that our clients ask about is, how do I obtain that CCTV footage? Because I think it's relevant and it's going to show the demeanor of the complainant, how we were interacting, etc. Yeah. These are things that the police, in 99% of the cases, never go to retrieve.
And it's a big problem because the police can obtain it quite easily, whereas the defense has to bring a whole application. By the time we can do that,
you can't even
footage can be lost.
Yeah, forget the application. So we've done this. So I'm going a little out of order, and I'm sorry, because you asked an important question. So we'll come back to why can the police not follow up on important elements? And I think I want to be fair about that, but we'll talk about it. But this is also an important point. So in this case, we hired a private investigator, and we had the private investigator go to and investigate every location where our client said they were and asked to retrieve the footage from various locations, also to interview people. And where a hotel, for example, said, yes, we do have footage, we will secure it for you, but the police will have to get it, or we need a court order. So we have this in another case where I've written, in 2 new cases where I've written right away to the Crown saying, we've hired a private investigator, here's an email from management of the, in this case, a bar. They're saying they will secure the footage, the police just have to get it. So what if the police don't bother? Well, so step 1 is you got to move fairly quickly to get a private investigator to speak to these people, get a confirmation that they secure it. We can write a letter to these people too, but I like sending a private investigator because I like recording the interviews and getting that along with getting something in writing. But if the police don't get it, and we have this right now with a new file, client just asked a question, I said, well, we have to draft up a subpoena. We have to serve it on the headquarters of the company that owns whatever establishment we want, asking for them to provide the video on a date in court where we have to bring a written motion to disclose it to us. On that motion, the Crown will be a party to the motion. So it will likely be released by the court to the defense and to the Crown. That costs money. So you have to hire a private investigator. You have to then hit a subpoena on the correct people. And then you have to draft up a motion. You got to attend on the motion.
It has to be very timely because footage gets deleted.
But if you get them to secure it, then you're okay. And some companies we've dealt with recently have been kind enough to say, and I say that kind enough, most people say, F off, right? Said, yes, we will secure it for you. So you've got some leeway, and we want to save our clients money, so we ask for the police to do it through the Crown. But you have to bring this motion in most of the situations, because I have yet to have a scenario where they'll actually get the surveillance video.
Yeah, but the obvious question is, why do the police not do that?
I don't know. I really don't have an answer. It could be a resource thing. I mean, it's the rarity. Like, we've had the benefit over now almost 34 years where I've read, hundreds, if not well over 1,000 interviews. And you've read tons, right? Since being with us now 8 years, 9 years, and then your work with your non-for-profit Lighthouse, where there are a difference in interviews. Not all police interviewers will just simply listen and then ask the follow-up question. Some will hear it and then go, okay, and then ask a follow-up question to try and dig deeper as to the facts of the case. That is really the rarity, but it happens. And on occasion, there's a buddy of mine who just retired after, I think, over 40 years of policing. And he said him and this guy, I met these guys back in 1996. I was doing an organized crime case, big organized crime case. And these 2 guys were excellent. And I became good friends with this gentleman who's just retiring now. And he was talking to me. We were having drinks. And he was talking to me about, sex assault investigations. And he was like, yeah, so Rick and I won't use my friend's name. So we get this complaint. It's about something that happened here and there. So we go out, like something seemed off. So they start to trace the steps of where everything happened. And they find out there's no location that matches where she said and all sorts of other stuff. So they went back, brought her in, and then she confessed that it was a lie. That doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't. No.
But these were 2 guys, these guys were like, if your client was guilty, like, you were because these guys did really good investigations. And back then I did a ton of organized crime stuff. They didn't stop. Like, Rick was like a dog with a bone. This guy just did not stop. And he was an old style investigator. It was funny. The stories that, he'd exercise, but he'd be having a smoke while exercising. And there was a burn spot on the treadmill where he'd put his cigarette. But the guy was like a solid investigator. And it's like, unfortunately, we've only seen it in maybe less than 10% of the interviews where the police will ask follow-up questions. Diana, why don't they always ask follow-up questions?
They should.
Why is that not part of an interview protocol?
Like you mentioned my nonprofit, and I had police officers contact me on YouTube and saying, I totally agree with you. It's like they're frustrated. They're not permitted to do the job they think they should be able to do. If they ask too many questions, they get disciplined. That's what I've heard. So You know, and that's like, I'm talking 9 years ago before I was working here.
I don't think it's different.
But it is a problem. In this case, we didn't just have a complainant making a statement.
But can I go back to one
Our
thing?
client gave a statement as well. And he asked them, just to finish, he asked them to investigate things, and they didn't do it.
Right. So, well, in this case, he did. Right. In this case, he was fighting and saying he was fully interviewed.
Please.
He was fully interviewed. He actually said, "Can you please go to the hotel? Can you please get these CCTV? Can you please check?" Because she was happy when we were checking in. Can you please check where we went shopping? My car went into a ditch.
She was a part of the phone call, booking the hotel room where she ended up contacting police.
Maybe the person who took the reservation will remember that she was part of the conversation.
Saying, "Do you have a swimming pool? Because I want to go swimming."
None of that happened.
No.
But on the flip side, you'll get new legislation like Bill 16, which is now in law, but it's all premised on protecting victims, enhancing victims.
They're called victims.
Nobody's a victim until the court determines that there's guilt. It could be on a guilty plea or the end of a trial.
It's called the Protecting Victims Bill.
How the system, that's right, how the system re-traumatizes the victim. What gets lost in all this is just having an objective investigation.
Yeah.
But you're right, the bill was Protecting Victims.
Protecting Victims Act, Bill C-16.
So don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when there's little to no investigation. And some officers, you're right, have said to me, I would have liked to do more. If they don't lay charges, but I can't.
It'll get sent back to them, and they're told to lay charges.
Oh no, they that would be very wrong for them to do.
Well,
and frankly, and I have a funny anecdote here, and some officers will say, I want to investigate and do more. A, I don't have the time. B, I'm discouraged from doing that because if I'm doing that, I'm challenging the complainant or the victim, and then I'm in trouble. And then there's some officers who believe, why should I do anything else? And here's the funny thing also. We now represent more females than I think I have in my career. 2 charged with sex assault, 1 arising out of high conflict divorce, and then multiple assault charges in high conflict separation cases. So when somebody wants to criticize me, I'm only talking about protecting men. Yeah, no, we've reached a peak right now with female clients. So it's happening on the other side as well. All of which the female, I'm sorry to say this, I'm kind of capturing this, said the exact same questions that our male clients say. Well, why didn't they investigate? Why did they not pull down the CCTV footage? They would have seen me going in here. There's footage from the Ring doorbell at the house. Why don't they have that? Same concerns.
I'm going to say something I know you're not going to like.
That's why we have the edit button.
With the new coercive control, I know you don't like talking about that right now.
No, it's not.
With the new coercive control
we're kind of in a vacuum
laws
now.
that are coming up that are already passed but not scheduled to start until 2028, we're going to see a lot more female clients.
Oh, I think so too, especially arising in high conflict divorce situations.
Yeah, well, coercive control. We'll deal with that.
2 things have combined. I think you're right. The coercive control and then the new torts that's been recognized by Supreme Court of Canada and family law are going to encourage more and more charges and more spurious litigation.
Well, it's subjective in terms of when you feel you're being controlled. So
let's go back to this case because there's so many important elements here. This is, again, a real life case. We're being careful not to identify anybody.
Yeah.
Excellent Crown attorney, and we'll tell you why ultimately it was withdrawn. But so we had to hire the private investigator, went to every location, got video secured in certain places. We were all his phone and dash cam was seized, and we were all over the Crown. Here's the passcode.
Right. That's so interesting.
Please just download from this date to this date. I wrote a very specific disclosure request with a very specific consent saying from this date to this date they're together. Download and everything. Here's the password.
Well, this is a huge thing. When the police take control over a cell phone or a dash cam and it's in their possession, we can't access it. And we're saying to them, please get that stuff for us.
And what if they don't do an extraction?
Because we can't while they have it.
What if they don't? What do we do?
Well, there's all the delay.
Right. So it can take months. And then at the point where they're not doing it, then the position that I take is we bring a motion to get the phone back. If there's some issue because of its evidence, provide it to us. We'll bring it to our expert. and you can take a mirror image of it if you really want to, but we have to go get it. We have to get it. We have to do our own extraction. That's what has to happen if they're not doing it. But in this case, we were asking for that to be done, and it was taking a long time.
So I have this weird look on my face because you keep squeaking your chair, and I
know,
can't figure out why.
I think I have to WD 50, 40, whatever that stuff is called.
You just need to stop doing this.
What about, like, there's all sorts of other stuff. So they went shopping to a mall. It's even in her statement that he did that. And our client lays out a fairly good timeline as to everything he did, including the
He
shopping.
actually bought her the suitcase.
He bought her the suitcase and went to multiple stores.
And a swimsuit.
And he kept the receipts. So he said, I went to this mall. We went to these stores. You can get the videos from these places. You will see her shopping, picking out clothing, picking out a swimsuit, because one of the locations she wanted to go to, it was a big deal to make sure there was a pool.
Right.
Nothing done. He has all the receipts. They don't go to check any of the stores. You might think it might be, maybe if it's a few days afterward, go to one of the stores where they were shopping. You might find somebody who served them.
Yeah.
You could take a statement from. What else was there? There was a lot of stuff in this case.
So
They never interviewed the psychiatrist.
I know. So this is an interesting case because we have a complainant who admitted that she had psychological issues. She was under inpatient care, checked herself out.
On medication.
And spoke to her therapist about her decision to go on this vacation.
No, her psychiatrist, who was responsible for her while inpatient.
Correct.
Now, we're not saying, again, we say this a million times, somebody who has mental health issues can very well be a victim. We're not saying that. We're just saying, in her instance, she volunteered in her statement that I was in a psychiatric facility, I'm under care, I'm on medication, and I discussed this with the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, I should not go. I disregarded that, and I went nevertheless. Right. Wouldn't it be somewhat of value to maybe speak to the psychiatrist?
Well, and so we were faced with the proposition that we would then have to, because she made the psychiatrist a witness.
Third
party application.
Yeah.
She made the psychiatrist a witness in her own statement, saying that she literally spoke to the psychiatrist about her decision to go on this vacation. And then she said her psychiatrist gave her advice about whether to do the vacation or not. So that makes him directly a witness, but we would have had to bring a third-party application.
Right, and we would try and get the notes of the doctor with respect to that. And then we'd also want diagnosis and treatment.
We would have.
Why? So let's ground this. So for those lawyers who watch this, so this isn't a fishing expedition, because she discussed with the psychiatrist going on
told the police in her statement that she discussed this.
That's right. So when she says, she said in her statement, I did not know that he was taking me out of the city I'm in. So let's call this city Palm, okay? I thought we were just staying in Palm, just because I like palm trees. So I also like Norway spruce.
Pompeii,
and
let's say Pompeii.
Okay, so I'm staying at Cup. I thought we were staying in Cup. I didn't know we were going to Plate, okay? But she discusses with the psychiatrist leaving Cup and going to Plate, right? So she grounds the relevance of the psychiatrist's own notes. Where they don't have what?
They have really good hummus.
Oh, that's good. So it's all grounded in her statement. So this would be a relevant source of information that could actually either corroborate or refute what she says. It was pretty obvious from her statement it would refute it. Hence, nobody bothered to interview him or even get his notes.
Well, that's the concern, is that, like, you would think that when the police take a statement and something is said that's concerning, they would become concerned.
But a core feature of her evidence was, I didn't think I was leaving the city. Yet there's a discussion with the psychiatrist about leaving the city.
And a suitcase.
Okay.
It becomes, I think, a concern for the public because the public pays for these prosecutions.
They pay a lot of money.
There's a lot of talk about public perception of the legal system and faith in the legal system being a system of justice. So you would think the public would be interested to allow the police to, conduct a proper investigation if there is cause for them to be concerned about a statement.
Yeah, And leaving aside from this, as we noted, our client gave a full statement. The client said in his statement, well, I took her shopping. We went to Winners, we went to Urban Planet, we went to Roots, we went to Hot Topic, we went to Bikini Village and Le'Veon Rose in preparation for our trip.
Le'Veon Rose, is that how you said it?
Le'Veon Rose.
Le'Veon Rose.
Le'Veon Rose.
All right.
Anyway, so even though I'm from Quebec originally, my French is awful.
Okay.
But nobody takes him up on this, right? Okay, give me the receipt, sir. Nothing.
No. Please investigate. Look at my dash cam. Check, get the CCTV from all these things.
Please go to the hotel and see what digital evidence you can get. And please interview the person who checked us in. Please. Also, he mentioned we went to a restaurant there. The server we had a big chat with the server. The server probably would remember. Nothing. There was another potential witness. I won't even go into that.
Like we did mention, like just looking through the RPC that we did to convince the Crown that they needed to reassess the case, reasonable prospect of conviction. We mentioned here too that the complainant actively hid her mental illness from the client, from the accused, and so had a meeting. It was properly arranged. Let's go for dinner. Let's have a chat, see if we get along, and then decide if we want to go on a vacation. This is not like an abduction kind of scenario.
No, and let's add a little bit more meat to this. Yeah. So the complainant said that she negotiated with our client on the first night they were together in her city, some sexual act for money, which our client says that's not true.
Right.
And she says, I have used that website and other websites to offer sex for money.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Even though our client's advertisement was very clear on a very non-sexualized type of website, a companion for travel. She then says, and like you said, eventually it seemed from her evidence that it was an abduction.
Right.
Right? It really was. An abduction.
She's like, I got into the car and I had no idea we were leaving the town, and
there's nothing that goes off in the police officer's mind to go, again, not like a sex worker can't be sexually assaulted, but it seems it was at such odds with our client's statement that one might reasonably think there should be at least a follow-up interview with the complainant and go and get further records. Not happening.
No, I know. Like we were saying, abduction is like saying, we couldn't get a hotel in the city that she was from, so we had to go slightly out of town, and then like this whole idea that then all of a sudden she's trapped in this car with this person, yet she's making a phone call to the hotel saying, oh, I remember going there. Do you have a pool still?
Let's talk about
these are totally relevant.
Let's talk about the killer here. Yeah. So finally, text messages are retrieved. Not through, sitting around waiting. This took a lot of effort to get this done. Lo and behold, he was 100% right in everything he described. Okay? Mm-hmm. There were messages from the complainant insisting that they meet the night that they first spoke. Client saying, no, it's going to be late. I'm going to be late getting there. No. I want to meet you right away. Agreeing to go on a trip. Sending nude photographs or topless photographs of herself, even though our client said, I don't want any.
Ask for them?
I didn't ask for them and I don't need them.
But wow.
Using terms like, let's be spontaneous, let's go. And then clear messages about planning to travel outside of their city. And him also writing, no pressure, you make your own decisions. And there was a lot of discussion about planning literally a trip around various cities for Ontario. And without getting into exact detail of all of them, they went to do various things. They were talking about going to a butterfly conservatory in another city, talking about needing the appropriate clothing, talking about needing a bathing suit, the shopping, reams of text messages.
Getting a passport so they could travel out of the country
possibly
at some
outside
point.
Of the country. Yeah. Hotel options, exchange of hotels. The complainant had sent our client a list of bills that she had to pay which she was asking for some help to pay for. Confirmation of the booking of the hotel in a city outside with a response saying "okay" or "okie dokie," whatever. Then another nude photograph. Our client told the police the 100% truth.
Yeah, and nothing got investigated. So that's the thing. The administration of justice. What do we want to see? What is fair?
Okay, so remember, I'll say two things, but one, let's pause for a moment for all those people who say that false accusations are rare. They're not. Again, people come to us because they know we will fight hard to uncover the truth. So we get a unique set of people, and I think people who come to our practice realize that there's a lot of value in retaining, a firm where, Diana, you run for your own non-for-profit. You've been dealing with and advocating on behalf of the wrongfully accused for well over a decade. We're into 15 years or more, and you have specific talents. I've been litigating for more than 3 decades, specializing now in sexual assault cases, having, cross-examined, hundreds of complainants and witnesses, well over 1,000 at this point. So they recognize that there is a wealth of experience, knowledge, and skill to come to us. And that's why we may get, a sort of I think I just did a commercial for us, a sort of disproportionate type of clientele. That said, we see this very, very often. Yeah. And this is a stark fucking example of somebody who said, no, I don't need to speak to a lawyer. Let me tell you everything.
Why did she lie? She wanted to get home and she needed a free ride.
Look,
that's why it happened.
We surmise that given what may be going on with her mentally, as she got further away from Toronto, you were suggesting she may have experienced extreme anxiety at that point and then didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, she had mental illness. Her anxiety kicked in as the further away she got from home. And then at a certain point, she got a phone call or a message or something, and she realized she needed to get back, and she needed to get back for free.
But she literally made up a lie.
Yeah, but
this is 100%.
You got me worked up, Joseph, because
that's good. People, they like that when you're worked up. I'm going to remain calm.
The best reason to get angry about false accusations is when it really happens. And when people lie about it, it's the most insulting thing ever. To real victims, it's the most insulting thing ever. That's not what
the public understands, and it does a disservice. But here's the thing: we live in a society. People suck. I mean, people will lie for their own agenda, for their own best interest. Trying to find the truth these days is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Like, it's extremely hard now. So I think people are almost emboldened now more than ever to not tell the truth about things. And especially in this type of area, there's no consequences for lying.
But there is consequences when charges are laid without proper investigation. And that's kind of what we're talking about.
The consequences are for those who are accused.
Yeah.
That's who bears the brunt of it. And, we can say it does a disservice to real victims. It does, but if they come forward and give their statements, those cases will get litigated as well. Yeah. And if they're telling the truth...
There's no reason not to do a proper investigation. There's no legitimate reason.
But here's again, a very stark example, gave a full statement, accurate about everything he said, asked the police to investigate, gave very detailed rendition of everywhere they went, where they could possibly find evidence. Here, I can give you the receipts. Please check my phone. Here's my passcode. Just check everything, okay? I got to tell you, had it not been for the Crown that we had to deal with, some Crown attorneys would say, no, I still think there's a reasonable prospect of conviction.
It would have gone to trial.
Yeah. And without saying so much, he agreed, no, this has to be a complete withdrawal. And, I have deep concerns about this. But this is a complete and utter fabrication. So what's the policy change that we want to see? And this is something we're starting to talk about more and more. I called for a while ago, if you want to receive digital evidence from a complainant, here's 2 ways to do it. Execute a warrant, get the phone, do a proper extraction, or ask for consent, have them sign a proper waiver, take the phone, do a mirror image of the time that they need, only so you don't interfere with their privacy on other issues, but get the full threads, get everything.
There is no disrespect to a complainant to investigate the allegations they're making.
So the second policy then is to actually do a fulsome interview and then take further steps where it is warranted, because there is other avenues of evidence that will benefit an investigation. Take those steps, conduct those interviews, get the digital evidence like CCTV video footage, do a fulsome investigation. So these are two things we're looking for.
It's not disrespectful at all to a complainant to do that.
Why? Aren't the police and the system re-traumatizing them by saying, we want to interview these people?
We're gonna look into what you're saying, because you might not be telling the truth.
But you don't have to say that to them.
You're looking into it
No
to try and
police officer,
verify what they're saying.
No police officer would ever say that. They're far more polite and adept at that. They'd say, thank you very much. Okay, you've been here, you've been there. Great. We're going to take some additional steps to, contact the hotel and to contact where you went shopping. Can you just tell us a little bit more about this, about that? Can you give us the contact information for your psychiatrist, please? Thank you so much.
Fair enough.
Here's victim services. Here's all sorts of help you can get. Like, what's wrong with that? You're not mistreating them. You're just conducting an objective investigation. And we see this more and more and more. And less and less. We have seen thorough investigations. These are getting less and less and less now. And I think as we get farther away, I think from what I was used to by way of the investigations in all areas of crime, but sexual assault in particular, I think this just will grab hold more and more. The more we'll see legislation, enhancing victims' rights and doing this and doing that, and it's traumatizing, blah, blah, blah. I think we're going to just continue to see basically police officers in many instances just simply being like a stenographer. Yeah. Here, give me your statement. Oh, they don't even make, they make notes, but just give me your details and that's it. Yeah. But this was again, sometimes we'll do these case studies or these case reviews because it's people say, we're not telling the truth about the fact that there's false allegations. Yeah. This is a perfect example.
I know. And the public should have better
I think
service.
It's very important. Like, we investigate other crimes. Everything else gets investigated. So I just think it's incumbent upon a free and democratic society that at its core will have proper investigations, no matter, as I've said it a million times, no matter the gender of the accused or no matter the nature of the offense. Full and complete objective investigations. Correct. And so two things we want to see change: digital evidence, how it's getting collected by police from complainants, and frankly, doing objective investigations.
Yeah.
Pillow Talk.
Don't forget, if you like this episode, like, comment, subscribe, share. We do read comments, so we appreciate your participation in the...
We have to do an episode. Somebody commented they'd like to know, what does it really mean and how do you go about preparing for trial as an accused?
Oh,
so I think
that's a big question.
Well, I think we can talk about that in sort of general format.
I'll play the bitchy prosecutor.
Yeah. You can give an example of cross-examination. So we'll go through that in one episode. So, and I think that might be beneficial to people.
Yeah, that would be really fun, actually.
But we everything we see, whether it's on YouTube, the comments that are there, or sometimes when our TikTok videos go up and we get the comments. So we do look at it. So thank you very much. And I think we're at 9.1K now, so help us get over 10,000. Yeah. And we really appreciate the viewership.
When you subscribe, don't forget to hit notifications.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody, and thank you very much for your viewership. Good night.